Okay, good evening, everyone.
Okay.
Of the City and County of Swansea. First item on our agenda this evening is apologies for absence. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from Councillors David Phillips, Mark Thomas, Matthew Jones, Mike Day, Paxton Hood-Williams, Peter May and Steve Gallagher.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies? Anyone wish to give apologies for anyone? No one indicated.
Yes, Chair, sorry, Hazel Morris.
Councillor Hazel Morris, thank you, Chair. Okay, item 2, disclosure of personal and prejudicial interests. Rachel Rebecca, please, to offer advice.
Thank you, Presiding Member. The only agenda item I would highlight in tonight's council meeting is agenda item 12, which is the notice of motion relating to the universal credit, the UK government's decision to reduce the payments by £20 per week. Many of you may be either directly impacted or have close personal associates who are directly impacted, or family members who may be directly impacted. So I'll take a block declaration from those councillors who wish to declare a personal interest only in relation to agenda item 12. So that's a personal interest only under paragraph 10(2)(c) of the code. And I'll take that as a block declaration. So all those councillors who wish to declare a personal interest, if you could please indicate by raising your hand, your virtual hand. And please remember to fill in the form.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other matters of personal or prejudicial interest that members wish to mention? No one else indicating. If not, we go on to item 3 of the agenda, which is the to approve and sign minutes of the previous meetings as a correct record of pages 1 to 6. Page 1, 2, 3. Councillor Lloyd, you got your hand up?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So it's page 3. I think it's item 3. The Queen's Birthday Honours. Yeah. Item 13 on the on that previous agenda. 2 Queen's Birthday Honours. David Jones Lloyd should read David John Lloyd. BM, not as described.
So that's David John Lloyd.
John Lloyd. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct that. Thank you. And then overlay 4, 5, 6. Okay. No one else indicating. Happy to approve and sign those minutes. All in favor? Thank you.
Oh.
Okay. Item 4 then, written responses to questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of council, pages 7 and 8. On there for information. Just one thing, Councillor Fitzgerald. Item 5 then is the announcements of the presiding member. I have 1 or 2 announcements, but thankfully we're not beginning with one of condolences this evening, just a nice change. Okay, first is council procedure rules, which is the council constitution part 4.1. Okay, now council procedure rules state that 5 clear working days should be given to the publication of the summons and any reports for council meetings. However, in exceptional circumstances, the 5 clear working day rule may be waived, provided there is prior agreement on the presiding member, monitoring officer, on the head of democratic services, and the leader of council. Okay? Now I'm aware, that's the skylight closing. I'm aware that some individuals had difficulty accessing the council website yesterday, which was the 28th of July, and as such, I have obtained the written agreement to waive the 5-day rule. But please note that under the legislation, only 3 clear working days are required. However, the council always seeks to improve on that and has given 4 clear working days in this instance. Okay. I think we're all aware of the difficulties with IT over the last couple of days, and I think that explains the public notification of council minutes and so on. Okay, and then takes me to the Municipal Journal 2021 Achievement Awards. This council has been nominated as finalists in 2 categories. One is the Best Social Housing Initiative and the Best Council Service Team. Right? The winners will be announced on the 17th of September in London. The Best Council Initiative is for the developments at Parker Hillig and Collier's Way. Now, Swansea Council has recently completed the 2 new build schemes. The homes are built to the Swansea standard and combine innovative technologies to help keep energy bills as low as possible. These homes all provide ground source heat pumps, PV solar roofs, battery storage, and mechanical ventilation heat recovery systems, and will be able to store and use their own energy. The 34 new homes across the 2 sites include a mix of 1-bedroom apartments, 2, 3, and 4-bedroom homes, and all the apartments have their own private access, and all the homes have private rear gardens. The other shortlist is for the Best Council Service Team, and the finalists for their More Homes delivery achievements to the present day include Bryn House, and as laid down in the 2016 Commissioning Review, recommending outcomes of transformed existing in-house delivery, approved by Council and implemented in September the 16th, was a clear objective of building in-house skills to deliver the More Homes strategy. This is supporting climate change, it tackles fuel poverty, and boosts economic energy efficiency measures in social housing. So we keep our fingers crossed for September for those shortlisting for those 2 awards. We'll report back to you how we do. And then there are amendments, corrections. Item 11, in councillors' questions 5 and 6. You will note that the amended responses have been circulated in relation to questions 5 and 6. Okay, you've all had those amended responses. That concludes my announcements. Now, next item is the leader's announcement. So I call on Councillor Rob Stewart, the leader of the council. Rob.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. A few announcements from me tonight. So firstly, obviously, members will have seen the announcements of free bus travel, which will start tomorrow across Swansea. Really pleased that we've been able to bring this initiative forward. It'll mean free travel for anyone in Swansea's boundaries from any location to any location on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday over the summer holidays. This represents a saving of around £50 a week for families if they were to do the same amount of travel using the saver tickets that are offered by First as a provider. So a real boost to families and a real boost hopefully to our tourism economy and to businesses across Swansea to allow people to get out and shop safely, to visit our beautiful locations safely. And of course, the advice remains when you're on the bus to wear a mask and respect others and obviously to travel safely wherever you're going. So really pleased with that scheme, and obviously that will commence from tomorrow. I'm also pleased to announce that as a further measure from our recovery fund, you'll know that we have already provided support in terms of removal of the fees for many sports clubs to use our pitches and our parks across the city. There were some clubs that are in a more complex arrangement where they are the lease holder for those facilities, and we will be bringing forward an announcement very shortly on the detail of how we can help those clubs to ensure they do not miss out on the benefits of the support that we're offering to clubs and to obviously our youngsters across Swansea as we emerge from the pandemic. So further announcement on that in due course and further detail to be announced. I also wanted to update members in terms of the review that has been commissioned into the disturbances on May Hill. Members will be aware that I was very keen that the questions posed by the community on the Hill directly after the events were dealt with and answered effectively. So the review has now begun. It'll be headed up by Elwyn Evans, who's a respected, obviously, professor from Swansea University, who will be ably supported by Jack Straw and Martin Jones, who will provide support from local government and from the police perspectives. The review should obviously focus, as I said, on the key questions that the community need answering, as well as looking at how we could have potentially foreseen any events forthcoming before the disturbances, how everybody responded on the evening, and what people did directly after the event. And then obviously using those to ensure that lessons are learnt not just in Swansea, but across Wales and the UK as to how we may avoid similar events in future. So I'm hopeful that that review will report in a few months' time because it's essential that communities get the answers to their questions as soon as possible. Presiding Officer, obviously members will be aware of the email we received from Phil Roberts earlier this week announcing his intention to retire at the end of this term. I just wanted to place on record my thanks to Phil for everything he has done throughout his many, many years of service for this council, and most recently, of course, as our Chief Executive. I won't say much more than that tonight. There will be a lot to say, I'm sure, as we get closer to the date when Phil does leave us, but I just wanted to, I'm sure, on behalf of the Chamber, just recognise at this point the immense contribution that Phil has made over a very long period as a member of Swansea Council. And finally, I'm sure members across the Chamber would have been really disturbed to see the scenes outside the First Minister's house last weekend. I don't think it's appropriate for any public figure, whatever office they hold, to have themselves and their family subjected to that sort of intimidation and abuse in their own home. I know I've spoken to other group leaders about this issue, and I would going to suggest tonight that with the council's backing, with members' backing, that I write on behalf of the council to the First Minister, offering him our support and calling out the unacceptable behaviour that he faced as First Minister for him and his family in their own home. So that concludes my announcements, Chair, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Chris Holly.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Can I fully support the Leader in a number of things that he said, and one of them about the shameful display outside the First Minister's house. I think we all come into politics, we expect in local politics, especially, we all expect questions that people come into our homes or whatever, but we don't expect there's mobs outside. And I think it's reprehensible, and I think I would fully support what he said. We also talked as leaders with regards to the comments made by Katie Sharinia in Trafalgar Square. Personally, I find it quite offensive that this ex-nurse should stand up and compare our wonderful NHS and nurses to Nazis. And I hope the Leader, when we had this discussion, was actually going to write to the Prime Minister saying that something should be done about that sort of language and that sort of attack on an organisation who thankfully have seen us through this pandemic. And, you know, I sincerely hope that everybody else feels the same as I do. Very, very angry at the comments that made with that. Also, I'd like to congratulate him on the initiative of the bus day, of the free buses. Imitation is always the best thing in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd also like to say how very disturbed I was about the scenes outside the First Minister's home. You know, quite frankly, that was totally unacceptable, not just for him, but more so for his family. And really, it would be unacceptable for everybody in this chamber as well if that happened to them. And, you know, I hope with regard to the First Minister that there will be a review of security for him, because that went without incident. But, you know, what happens the next time? And I think that does need to be looked at. And I'd like to associate myself with the words that the Leader of the Council said. Also, the points about that Chris Holly said about the NHS. Anybody attacking the NHS in that way is absolutely unacceptable. They were actually keeping us safe at great risk to their own lives. And for that to be said is, again, totally unacceptable, and it inflames the situation, and it shouldn't be allowed. So I think that is that equally is important. And the final point, I'd like to thank the leader, the work that he has done on getting the review up and running for Mayhill, because I know that he was very keen, and that has actually happened. That is going to be a totally independent review that are looking for it, that'll report back quickly for the, because the questions do need answering, and the local people need to know what they are and have that input. And I know that he has arranged that. So thanks very much.
And, Councillor Peter Black. Peter, your hand went up.
Yeah.
The leader's comments, I assume it's for clarification on some point.
Yeah, just a question, Chair, if I may. I very much welcome the free bus service which is being put on, but just for the record, what is the actual cost of that concession, please?
Okay, it's leaders. Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I'll just respond to Councillor Holly and Councillor Jones first. Yes, thank you for the prompt. We had a discussion around the dreadful comments made by the anti-vaccine demonstrators in London. I am preparing a draft, and if the fellow group leaders are prepared to sign it, obviously I'm certainly intent on writing to the Prime Minister to ask for further action against that, because I think it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure the sort of lies and the hatred that was being said at that event needs to be challenged, and challenged very, very strongly. And attacking our doctors and nurses and suggesting that they should face the same capital punishment that was given to the Nazis after the Nuremberg trials is just absolutely appalling and deserves to be condemned utterly. So I do intend to draft or circulate a draft shortly for leaders to consider supporting. So thank you for that. Councillor Black, in terms of the bus travel, I don't have a final figure on it yet, but what I will do, I will circulate to members the indicative figure in terms of the amount of support it's likely to cost. Obviously, it will depend in terms of how many operators require further support as the scheme gets taken up over the coming 5 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Leader. On to item 7 then, it's public questions. We have no notification of any public questions. No. Item 8 is diversity and democracy. That's pages 9 to 42, and I think Councillor Louise Gibbard is going to move this.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. I'm very. Oh, sorry, am I on mute?
No, you're not.
Oh, sorry. It still says mute on my screen. Apologies. Yeah, I'm very happy to move this report and its recommendations that would see us taking some concrete steps towards making our council more representative of the diverse communities that we serve. I'd like to start by paying credit to Councillor Mary Sherwood, who led this important work in her role with the Welsh Local Government Association, and to our Head of Democratic Services, Hugh Evans, who also worked on the working group. I want to emphasise this is a cross-party initiative. It was very warmly welcomed at the WLGA and has already been accepted by councils across Wales, from Monmouthshire to Gwynedd to RCT and many others. I think the statistics around this are well known and they're very clear. Just a couple of examples: only 28% of Welsh councillors are women, less than 2% are Black, Asian and minority ethnic. And essentially the issue here is that whilst we can and we do work very hard as councillors to be an effective voice for the residents in our wards of all backgrounds, and we can listen, we can consult, we can represent different views, but there really is no substitute for having a diverse set of people in the room when decisions are being made, and have them to bring with them their own unique perspectives and crucially that lived experience of what it means to be female, to be disabled, LGBT, young or black, Asian or ethnic minority in Swansea today. So we need to acknowledge that in spite of our efforts, progress to deliver more diverse councils across Wales has been too slow, and simply wishing things were different is not good enough, and we need to take action to make sure this is the case. So I really hope that Swansea can be one of the councils leading the way in this. We can build on the work that we're already doing, the commitments we've already made in relation to supporting Black Lives Matters and the Race Council Cymru's Zero Racism Pledge, City of Sanctuary, children's rights, our support for Swansea Pride, the Disability Liaison Group, Age Friendly City, and our ambition to become a human rights city, which pulls all of this together. So I look forward to working with the Democratic Services Committee, as recommended in the report, to get action plan in place and to get us there as soon as possible, so that hopefully we can see the benefits in next year's local elections and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbard. I understand Councillor Alison Peel.
Yeah, thanks, presiding member. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat what Louise said, but she said a lot then, so very good. But yeah, no, same thing. Look, I'd like to give thanks to the WLGA. They put a lot of work into this. Mary represented us, and you know that you can see by the report that it's taken time and a lot of effort, and I'm very grateful. And to Hugh, I can see Hugh's back, so I'd like to say thank you to Hugh as well. But look, we are a diverse city, and that's something we're really proud of. So why we struggle, you know, as a council to be diverse, it is something that we have to really look at and really sort of try to understand now. And this review is based on many, you know, recent studies, and identifies the problems that we know only too well. You know, for people with children, it's often a childcare issue to be in a councillor. If you work, sometimes it's the timings of meetings that then is difficult. You know, we know we need to be able to cope with, unfortunately, we do get a lot of abuse, and social media opens us up to even more of that these days. You know, there's a lot of the evidence, you know, does show that across, not just Swansea, across all councils, that is more suited in some ways to more people that are retired than younger people coming in, because they've got so many other complex problems in there, like we've just talked about. You know, like Louise said, there's lots of, you know, numbers of councillors that, you know, we are missing out on. We haven't got people in the numbers from the BAME community or who have a disability, or, you know, and therefore, you know, we need to do more work with organisations. I've been a mentor working with East for 2 years now to try and encourage local people to come in and want to be councillors and that. And I think more councillors you need to take up that offer and need to try and help people in. You know, we do have real issues, like the majority of us, and who would say this, we don't claim expenses because we're afraid of a public backlash. We're afraid of making a mistake. You know, and that's an awful way to have to be. And we have to, and even though Hugh encourages us all to claim, it is the fear that most of us have, and therefore we do have to do a lot of work to improve this, you know. So I'm really happy to second this motion and make a public commitment to improving diversity, and we'll set about an action plan before the next elections, and really keen to work with Democratic Service Committee, and therefore, presiding member, I'm happy to second this report.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick comment. I found it a very, very interesting report. A lot of information in it. As someone who falls into the retired category, I do wonder how, given my workload and given the number of hours I spend each day dealing with issues, I do wonder how sometimes people are able to fit in being a councillor and having a full-time job. I think it must be extremely difficult. But the one thing I just wanted a little bit of clarification on was paragraph 1.5. It says it also identified that the right person for the job of councillor needs to be a member of the community they serve in order to fully and consistently understand the lives and needs of that community. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? What are we talking about here? Are we talking about being a member of the local authority, or being living in the ward that you intend to represent? What exactly is being suggested by this paragraph? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can deal with the questions then later. Councillor Rob Stewart, leader.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member, and I absolutely associate myself with the thanks to both Councillor Sherwood and to Hugh and others for the work that they've done to get this report. It was welcomed at the WLGA. I'm very pleased because, again, I think we've got a really we've gone to a very positive position in terms of trying to deal with gender inequality certainly in Swansea Council, in terms of the numbers of male and female, in terms of gender balance. We haven't done such a significant job in all of the other areas, as Councillor Pugh and Councillor Gibbard said, in terms of our BMME community, our LGB community, our disability representatives. You know, many councillors may have a disability, but they didn't get elected on the basis of being a disabled councillor. You know, it's so I'm very pleased to see the much broader attempt here to try and reflect the community and the diversity in our communities, because that is something that has, I think, been neglected in previous attempts to try and deal with inequality. But also, I would also say that this isn't a stick to beat people with either. You know, equality is something that should be there to respect and support all members of the community, not to demonise any sector of the community, and it should be a positive step, not a negative step. So really pleased to see this here. One thing I would add that I think has been alluded to, but we really do need to press this point. It's not just about the democratic changes that that would be required to get a more diverse representative democracy, but that can only be achieved where all parties play their part in achieving that. Because of course, it's only when parties select their candidates that the electorate then get to choose their next councillor. So parties have a role to play in this. And of course, then on the workforce side, of course, it's important that the policies that we have as a council encourage, as has been said, people to apply for roles in the authority, and for us to ensure that we've got a diverse workforce as well, delivering our services to our community. So again, Chair, very happy to support this, and I think it's a really positive report.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Leslie Moulton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I just really wanted to add my full support to this report coming here and the work that's going to be done in future, mainly as my fairly newish role of diversity champion. I think it's a very important area of work that we need to look at. And I think, to pick up on a point that Alison made about expenses, I think one of the main roles we've got to tackle in Democratic Services Committee is to try and work to remove barriers, like, for instance, those councillors who feel that they're not able to claim expenses. There are many people who would make excellent councillors but would not be able to afford to fork out the money that you fork out beforehand to cover costs that you've got every right to reclaim. So things like that I will be very keen to work on, and I look forward to working with Louise and others to try and bring some better statistics the next time we look at this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Councillor Peter Black.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just rereading the section on pages 25 and 26, the role of political parties, which I think is absolutely excellent. And in fact, having carried out unconscious bias training myself, I think it's very useful for everyone to be able to do that, not just in terms of the selection committee, but I think generally, I think it's a really useful exercise to carry out. But there are two bullet points in there which stood out for me. The first one about local parties or groups having training events and to help people understand what the role of the council is about. And the last bullet point, bystander training for candidates and party members. It does seem to me that not every party is going to have the resources or the expertise to carry out those particular types of events. And it just seemed to me that might be a useful role for the council to carry them out on a non-political basis, which for all political parties to nominate people to go along to in the interest of promoting a more diverse and democratic society. I don't know whether the monitoring officer is going to shoot me down on this, but it does seem to me that the council has the resources whereas political parties don't, and that we may be able to find a way of doing this in a non-political way. So I just wondered if that could be looked at. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Okay, a couple of questions. One from Councillor Fitzgerald. Can we deal with that first? Louise, can you take that, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to come back on both of Councillor Fitzgerald's points. I mean, I completely accept what she's saying about the demands of a role of a councillor, and and it is difficult to fit in with other commitments, and that's one of the things that I think the action plan will need to look at is are there ways of restructuring the council calendar to fit in with other people's commitments and things like that. But I don't want to prejudge what the action plan is going to say. In terms of that paragraph 1.5 about being a member of the community they serve, that's sort of a taken from the full WLGA report, and my understanding of that, it's not sort of making any dictating where the person has to live or reside. It's more about saying a more general point about having diverse councils that match diverse communities, and about having our backgrounds as being, like I said, like at the beginning, about being in the room and being able to bring that sort of lived experience with you. I can go back to the authors of the report and seek some further clarification but that's certainly my understanding of how it was written. And yeah, on what Councillor Black said, again, don't want to sort of prejudge what the action plan that we come up with, but I think anything that we can do as a council to support these kind of schemes is a good thing, obviously, and I think we are in a good position to do that and to cascade our knowledge and resources across. But political parties have obviously got to take a significant role in this, because we are actors in the election process and to select candidates, etc. So it's got to be done on a cross-party basis, or none as well for independents. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Yes.
Yeah. It's just to give some clarity to paragraph 1.5. As Councillor Gibbard says, it certainly wasn't about living in the community. There is strict legislation already in place about standing to be a candidate for election. There are several ways you can qualify to be able to be eligible. This paragraph is looking to encourage that incumbent to ensure they participate in community-based activities and are aware of the things going in that area. It's certainly not suggesting you must live there.
Thank you. Monitoring officer, do you want to comment anything? I think Councillor Peter Black mentioned something that you may be able to help with.
Yeah, presiding member, I mean, it will be, as Councillor Gibbard picked up, it will be something that we can pick up with the Democratic Services Committee in terms of the action plan going forward. We are already discussing within the committee training for councillors next year following the government elections, and I would anticipate it would form part of the action plan, Councillor Black.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald, you got your hand up? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was going to suggest that perhaps, when this is looked at again, it might be sensible to have another look at paragraph 1.5, because I do think I am reading it in a completely different way from perhaps how others are reading it. So I do think there needs to be some clarity around exactly what is meant by this paragraph. So perhaps this could be looked at, you know, at a future date.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the report has been moved by Councillor Gibbert and seconded by Councillor Pugh. So if there's no one voting against it, do you want to go through the electronic vote?
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
I just lodged the vote. So if you vote for, against or abstain, I'll give you a couple of moments. Okay, as
Hi, Hugh, I can't see it. Sorry.
no, it's okay. Give him something.
You've launched another vote. You voted the next
there's
item.
another vote.
I've seen the same thing, but I didn't lodge the wrong vote. But something odd has happened. I do agree.
Yeah, don't vote for that yet.
Give me a second. That vote hasn't. I don't know what's happened there. Give me a moment, and I will. I didn't launch it, honestly, but it did launch. Right. Can you all see the diversity and democracy item 8 poll? Right. For those who can't see it, if you can raise your virtual hand, and I will call you out for you to cast your votes verbally. I'm not touching everybody who see that. Hang on, give me a second. You've all got item 9 come up again, have you? Hang on, give me a moment.
Yes.
Go through those who. Right. Those who are against it, can you indicate? If you can raise your hands if you're against this item. Is there anybody against this report?
Wendy, you've got your hand up, mine.
I have got problems at the moment. I've got something about the audit committee come up in my box.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have as well, Wendy.
I don't know what I'm voting for at all.
Asking you now, we're on item 8, only on item 8 on diversity and democracy.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm voting for.
Ignore what's on the screen, Councillor Fitzgerald. I was asking
There's another one coming up.
in relation to item 8. Purely in relation to item 8. Are you for, against, or abstaining? You are muted, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Oh, for them.
You are for. Is there anybody against item 8? Is anyone abstaining in relation to item 8? Okay, can you all indicate that you're in favour of item 8 then?
No idea.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote then by default. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On to item 9 then, and that's the amendment to the Constitution. It's the updated terms of reference for the Governance and Audit Committee, and that's on pages 43 to 50. And the Deputy Chief Exec, Adam Hill, is going to take it. Adam.
Thank you, Presiding Member. The Local Government and Elections Wales Act received royal assent on the 20th of January 2021, and Chapter 2 of the Act makes changes to what was the Audit Committee by way of name, membership and proceedings. This report presents an update and amendments to the terms of reference for Governance and Audit Committee, and as a result, Wales Act 2021, as well as the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy Guide, Audit Committees, Practical Guidance for Local Authorities and the Police. The changes to the terms of reference can be seen by way of highlighted track changes in Appendix 1, which is pages 46 to 50. The main changes relate to additional functions that the Governance and Audit Committee will be required to carry out. These include to review and assess the authority's ability to handle complaints effectively, to make reports and recommendations in relation to the authority's ability to handle complaints effectively, to review the governance and assurance arrangements for significant partnerships and collaborations, and to consider and approve a number of internal audit documents, plans or reports, to contribute to the quality assurance and improvement programme, and to consider the external audit annual letter and consider other reports produced by external audit. Also to report on matters of concern to the individual cabinet member, relevant scrutiny committee, cabinet or to council as necessary and appropriate, and to publish an annual report on the work of the committee. The terms of reference has been recommended to council for approval after being considered by both the Governance and Audit Committee and the Constitutional Working Group. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Adam. Councillor Nick Davis. Nick, you got your hand up? Councillor Penny Matthews.
No, sorry, I can't turn my mic off. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jeff Jones. Jeff, you there?
My apologies, I didn't know my hand was up.
Oh, okay. Okay, you see the report on page 43.
Presiding Member, it needs to be.
Yes, I'm about. It needs to be proposed and seconded. Can I have a proposer, please?
I propose.
Thank you. And who was that?
Did it? I'll second it.
Right.
Chair, sorry, I was unmuting.
Okay.
That.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Harris, you want to go to
the poll item 9 you were voting on now. So if you could vote if you're for, against or abstaining, please. Okay. Has anybody not had an opportunity to vote electronically? Councillor Matthews, you've raised your hand.
Yes, sorry, who? It's just been really difficult to keep cutting you out.
Sorry, who's cutting you out?
It's my system this end. I've had problems with it all day. I do apologise.
Okay, so how would you wish to vote? Are you voting for, against or abstaining?
For.
Is anybody else?
Yes, Hugh. I've lost contact, but I'm voting for. Linda.
Okay. Anybody else wish to vote need to vote verbally? Got Councillor Walker.
For.
Are there any others now that need to vote verbally or haven't been able to vote? No.
Hugh, I don't know if mine has come up. Peter Island. I'm voting for.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now then. Give me a moment. There you are. Thank you for that. That's that's a positive vote for. I only get a couple of abstentions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to item 10 on our agenda. This is the amendment to the Constitution. It's the Pension Fund Committee, and this is for the Entrepreneur Officer, Tracy.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'll be relatively short on this one. This is an amendment to the terms of reference to the Pension Fund Committee. You will see on page 53 of the report that the terms of reference currently refer to a note. The first part of that note is that the Pension Fund Committee shall be chaired by the Cabinet Member responsible for finance. There is no statutory reason as to why the chair of this committee needs to be the Cabinet Member responsible for finance. Also, to an extent, fetters the discretion of the committee as to who they appoint as their own chair, and also the cabinet member responsible for finance has not been appointed to this committee. So you will see that it is a relatively straightforward amendment to remove that limb of the note as set out on page 53. You will see the recommendations set out on page 51. I would just ask that it is moved and seconded.
Okay, we need a mover and a seconder, please.
Chair.
Yeah, happy to move.
Thank you. And second.
Chairman, presiding member, can I ask a question?
Well, no, you can, Chris. Yeah, it's been moved and seconded.
No problem with the change in the note. I can quite understand that. And I know what the background of it was. The one thing I would ask, the proposed amendment to read, where does it say it in that? It's just that note under L, is it?
Sorry, presiding member, it's referred to in paragraph 3.3. You will see that paragraph 3.3, which forms part of the recommendation, has deleted the first limb of the note. So the only remaining part of that note is that the Neath Port Talbot Canterbury Council member is appointed to ensure compliance with statute.
So that's the only change in that.
Is paragraph 3.3. Yes.
Yeah, because okay, thank you.
Okay, that came. Okay, thank you. Mr. Evans, take the vote, please.
Yes, I've just launched the vote. It should be with you imminently. Okay, has anybody not received the vote? No? Or Councillor Walker? How do you wish to vote, Councillor Walker?
Oh.
Does anybody else need to do a verbal vote?
Hugh, I'm still struggling to get the votes up, so for motion, Ryland.
That's fine, Councillor Doyle. Anybody else? Any others? No? Okay, I shall close the poll now. Thank you very much. And that is majority is for with an abstention in it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. We now takes us to item 11, councillors' questions. And that's pages 56 to 66. And the first question was from Councillor Irene Mann. Councillor Mann, do you have any supplementaries? Not yet. Okay, thank you. Question 2 was Will Thomas and Miles Langston. Supplementaries, gentlemen?
No supplementaries from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 3, again, Councillor Will Thomas and Councillor Lyndon Jones. Any supplementaries?
Not from me. I don't know about Lyndon.
No.
No, thank you. Councillor 4, Councillor Lyndon Jones.
No, thank you.
Question 5, Councillor Linda Taylor Lloyd. Any supplementaries, Linda? Are you with us?
Yes, I have. Sorry, let me just put this on as well. Yeah, I've got 2 questions because people in my ward have asked me to ask you these questions, if I may. I'd like to think that not only I, but the residents of Males had clarity on this skateboard scheme. The residents feel badly served. I feel that there has been a disconnect between the Cabinet, the officers and the Members Community Council. This is a scrambled mess, as we all know, and these are the questions. Cabinet Robert Francis Davis said that he did not receive a firm offer from Mr. Bailey, but I am under the impression that a phone call was held and an offer was made by Councillor Bailey. If this is correct, why was that offer not passed on to the Members Community Council? Because £500,000 is an expensive item for amount of money for the Members Community Council residents. to find. The second question, if I may, would the leader consider improving the asset transfer scheme to the asset transfers to community councils and other groups, as it is clearly not working by having a one cabinet member in charge of this? And I would suggest that a scrutiny committee could take up this important responsibility. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Chair, if I might come in on this one, yes. in terms of Councillor Francis Davis's answers, again, I think as Ms Meredith informed everybody earlier, there were updated answers that have been circulated already that deal with that point. The first point that Councillor Tyler Lloyd has raised. In terms of the asset transfer policy, that has worked well in a number of areas. However, in terms of the process and the rules, I know the legal officers are currently looking at the land transaction rules, which are separate from the asset transfer policy. I am content with the responsibilities in Cabinet, and I don't intend making any changes there. And I don't recognise, unfortunately, some of Councillor Tyler Lloyd's views on the process and the disconnect. I do not believe that is the case, and I do not believe that to be accurate. Forgive me, was there a final part to Councillor Tyler Lloyd's question that I haven't answered? I'm happy to pick it up if it is.
Yeah, that's it.
That was it, yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. What I'm trying to understand is why this asset transfer didn't go ahead. I understand I've been told is the reason is that it wasn't advertised for 2 weeks instead of 1 week. Now that seems to me to be a pretty fundamental error on the part of the authority, given that we've done this before. The legal rules are quite clear set out. So why did that error happen, and what investigation has been made into uncovering what exactly led to that error taking place?
Again, just in terms of Councillor Black's questions, I'm not going to criticise officers or any party on this meeting.
And I haven't either.
Clearly an error was made in this process. It was a technical error within the process that has been recognised, and therefore that is one of the reasons why we did not contest the judicial review. I won't go any further on that at this point in time. But again, if Councillor Black wishes to obviously ask questions outside of this chamber, I'm sure Ms Meredith would be happy to talk to him about it.
Okay, can I just ask then a follow-up, Chair? Are safeguards being put in place to ensure that doesn't happen again?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll talk to Tracy outside the meeting. No, thanks.
Councillor Will Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, I'll start by saying, you know, any wealthy individual who puts forward a proposal of funds, you know, I wouldn't necessarily think that Mumbles Community Council would have changed their mind, or, you know, but it's definitely a discussion that they would have needed to have should they know that offer was on the table. And as a member of Mumbles Community Council, I'm extremely frustrated that this information wasn't given to us to debate internally and contact the person who was interested in, you know, putting this proposal forward to us. It's, you know, almost a year's budget for us. It's a huge amount of money, and it really should have been passed forward. So, you know, I'd like to know why it wasn't put forward, even if it wasn't formal. You know, we can hide behind the fact that it wasn't formal, but it was an offer, quite clearly, that was put forward to the cabinet member, and it's not been passed on to us. I mean, does this happen often? You know, there should be something surely put in place to make community groups and community councils aware of such things. And, you know, personally, I'd like to see that transparency in the future.
Chair, I would just refer Councillor Thomas back to the written answer, the updated written answer he's been provided with, which clearly demonstrates that whilst a conversation took place, a formal offer was not forthcoming to the authority. I will say no more than that at this point in time, because obviously Cabinet will be having to reconsider this process and obviously make a new decision in due course.
Okay, thank you, Leader. You still got your hand up, Peter. Is that a legacy hand? Yes. Okay. Thank you. That was question 5. On to question 6. Councillor Will Thomas, any supplementary as well?
No supplementaries, thanks.
Thank you. Question 7, Councillor Susan Jones.
Yes, could I just ask, is there a process in place, or could I say thank you for the answer, first of all, is there a process in place to prosecute vandals, and have we any evidence that that has happened in the past? Have we prosecuted any?
Yes. Who's going to answer? Robert, are you?
Yes. The question says that there's been evidence of vandalism. Now then, if members know of vandalism and evidence of vandalism, I would hope that they can bring that forward so that we can make investigations to prosecute. I've had nothing coming to me of vandalism of any of the new play areas that we have put in. We've been giving you a good full response of what we're doing as regards safety for the contractors, etc., and how they look after the site. I know that some of the contractors have even put CCTV in, but if Councillor Jones has evidence of any vandalism, she can forward that to me so that we can look into it and take action where appropriate. Obviously, we leave our parks open. Therefore, anybody damaging our play equipment, I would hope that all councillors would call the police and for the police to investigate and take the appropriate action.
So we have a process in place to do this, do we?
Well, it's always been in place. You know, we have parks, and I can remember years ago we were asked by the police to keep our parks open, so that there's no barrier from them going onto the property and take action against vandalism. People should be safe, and a property should be safe, whether it's inside a park or outside a park. And therefore, this is looking after a property in our community is a police matter. We will take action against people if we have the information and found that people are vandalising our equipment.
Well, you would know that there was a situation when Gowerton Park was being reorganised, that there was an amount of vandalism, and the contractors actually came to my home about it. So I'm just curious that we haven't prosecuted anybody. I understand that evidence is difficult to obtain, but I just wanted to know if there was a process in place. So thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah, but I would have hoped when they came to you, you would have contacted me as well, Councillor Jones, so that that would be, I wouldn't expect the contractors just to go to the local councillor. We are the purchasers of this equipment as the authority. But there is a process in place with all the 36 parks that we are doing to make sure that our contractors report anything direct to our project manager.
I did contact the project manager and the police and made them aware of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Terry Hennigan.
Yeah, only briefly, when we had a new park in Penderry, we actually, myself and June and Hazel actually put the money up, and we put a very sophisticated CCTV camera in place. And of course, when you talk about prosecution, you can also look on the other side. If they council tenants, there's breach of tenancy conditions under the tenancy. So there's those avenues to take as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Thank you for that.
That concludes part A of councillors' questions. Takes us to item 12, which is the notice of motion on universal credit. And the leader is going to...
Yeah, Thank you, Chair. Very, very happy to move this motion. I think it's a really clear motion, and I would hope that everybody in the meeting this evening will support the call to ask the UK government not to make this very, very damaging cut, which will affect thousands of people across the UK. So we're talking about obviously the reduction of £20 a week in universal credit. That's going to mean more than £1,000 a year taken out of families' income. The TUC have estimated some 2.3 million working families will see their income drop by £20 a week. And it's estimated that over 700,000 people will be plunged below the poverty line, including 200,000 children. That is simply not levelling up this country. We know that when universal credit came in, it was an imperfect change in the benefit system. It disadvantaged many families across the UK and left many working families much worse off. And of course, if you remember, the mantra at the time was that universal credit was going to make work pay. Well, it certainly hasn't done that. What it has done, though, is left many hardworking families out of pocket. And again, if the government is serious about levelling up, serious about dealing with inequalities, then taking £20 a week off the worst off families in the UK is simply not a way to achieve it. I would hope that everybody would support this motion and that we would absolutely condemn the action by the UK government, by the Tories in London, to try and take money off the worst off in the UK. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Andrea Lewis to second the motion. Andrea, you seconded. No, who seconded the motion?
Chair, I believe it might be Councillor Gibbard, I believe, Chair.
Councillor Gibbard?
Oh, okay. I was just going to speak, but I'm very happy to second if that's
You can formally, just formally second it if you, yeah.
I was going to say a couple of things if possible. So, yeah, just to completely echo what Councillor Stewart has said. You know, the reason the £20 a week increase to universal credit was even brought in because the pandemic just showed up how inadequate the existing amount was. You know, the UK has got one of the least generous social security systems in Europe. And cancelling this top-up payment, just as furlough is about to end, risks pushing people deeper into debt and poverty. Not only should the government be maintaining this £20 increase, it should actually be extending it to all benefit claimants. There are 2.2 million people on legacy benefits who've been denied this extra payment. I'm a member of Swansea branch of Unite Community, and the branch took part in a day of action with a stall and a petition on Oxford Street on July the 14th, and many people came forward to share their stories of just how much the extra £20 has meant to them. And we've got to remember that this money is not just extra cash in people's pockets, but it's got benefits to the local community, the local economy, sorry, that we just don't want to lose in this current climate. So really urge everyone to support this motion and to send a strong message that, you know, to the government that this is the wrong plan of action.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Davis. Nick, you got your hand up?
Yeah. No, I'm as I was a couple of minutes late into the meeting, I'm simply saying that a member of my family is in receipt of universal credit, and therefore I'm declaring an interest.
Okay, thank you.
Off the record, I'm going to also vote for the motion as well.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Howie.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I think the idea of this notice of motion is a very good idea. I think in principle, I think everybody should support it. I don't particularly like the words cruel and spiteful. The reason I say that is because I think cruel is probably a bit, you know, it's not professional, if I'm not perfectly honest. And to say spiteful means that, you know, the Conservative government or cabinet who's making this decision know the individuals concerned. You know, that's I don't particularly think the wording is good. I would have preferred the words unnecessary and regrettable, because it is unnecessary and it is regrettable. We've heard the figures from the leader, and we've heard other figures from Councillor Louise Gibbard with regards to the number of people concerned. I'm not really. I think the numbers concerned are huge, but let's take it down to the individuals themselves. Let's look at what's happening. We've got food banks, we've got food shares. Let's be bluntly honest about it. We are spending billions of pounds on a nuclear deterrent. We are spending billions of pounds or millions of pounds proposed on a yacht. The reality of life is we should be looking after our population, looking after the people of our country, and looking after those who are unable to look after themselves. And that is what we should be doing. And I do regret that the words cruel and spiteful are in there, but we obviously will support it. I would have liked far more professional words to be in it, but I genuinely cannot see why this Conservative government are doing this. If it's to save money, then there's lots of other things to cut back before cutting back on things which are going to affect the least well off in our society. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Great, thanks, Presiding Member. Yeah, I'm concerned at the wording, and because of the wording, we find that we can't support the motion, although we agree with the principles of it, and will most certainly be writing to the Minister. But, as we all know, it was a temporary measure put in place. But we are saying that because of the financial disruption as a result of COVID, the other side to it is because the motion says about removing thousands of pounds without the Chancellor and the money that he put in to furlough people and support business in Swansea as well. The economy would be far, far worse. But the other thing the motion doesn't say is that there's a one-off payment of £500 that the UK government is making to eligible working tax credit claimants across the UK to provide continued extra support over the next 6 months. But because of the language in it, we can't support the motion. However, that aside, at this time, we do support the extension of the payment of £20. Most certainly support it from September, and we will be writing to the Minister independently to say so. But it is sadness, I agree with Chris that the language in the motion is unprofessional, and with that, if that could be changed, you could have us voting for the motion.
Okay, thank you, Lyndon. Councillor Leslie Bolton.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Not much to add because I think everybody who's spoken for this motion has done most of it. Just a small point. I feel very lucky that for me, would I miss 20 quid a week? No. The people we are talking about not only will miss it, before the pandemic, their choice was often heat or eat. So when this money goes, I dread to think what their choices are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Councillor Alison Pugh.
Yeah. Obviously, I support the motion. Look, for somebody, like myself, I'm passionate about welfare rights and work closely with our welfare rights officers. And throughout furlough, we've had many people be made unemployed, and they've never been in that position in their life, and they've suddenly had to claim universal credit. And even with the £20 increase, people just could not believe that they had to go from wages to that small amount of money, yet alone going back to £20 less. We have had families, like somebody said earlier, it's nothing to be proud of when you've got successful food banks and things like that. We're having families in real dire straits. And now is not the time to be looking to be harsh and to be reversing things. People need more help. And it is brutal, and this is not right. The people who need it most are the people who are struggling. So yes, of course, I support this motion.
Thank you, Alison. Before I call the leader to sum up, I've still got Nick's. Oh, it's got Nick. Is your hand still up, or is it hereditary?
Legacy hand, Chair.
Legacy, thank you. Leader, Councillor Stewart.
Chair, I saw Councillor Kerry Evans' hand go up. I don't know whether Councillor Evans wanted to come in.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Leader. Just very quickly wanted to say on the point of the language, given that vast majority of people seem to agree that we're taking money off the most vulnerable in society. I can't think of another word other than cruel, really. So I understand what Councillor Hawley is saying, but I don't know what could be more cruel than taking money away from the most vulnerable people who really need it. And based on what Councillor Walton was saying, I can't in the context of what Councillor Walton was saying, I can't think of another word other than cruel, really. So just my view, and obviously I support the motion.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Now the leader then to
respond. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be brief, and I thank colleagues for their support. Just on the point Councillor Hawley made, and I'm grateful that Councillor Hawley, is still supporting the motion, but I do take the point he made in terms of the emotive language. I just wanted to make it clear, the words in that motion came from an individual who was telling me how they felt this was going to affect them. And they said, why would they be so cruel? This seems like a spiteful act. So that's why those words are in there, because actually for somebody who's on universal credit, that's how it feels. And, I don't think we should be ashamed to call people out and to say it as it is. I think sometimes we do sugarcoat things when we should use a bit more blunt language about exactly what the impacts of these dreadful measures will be on families. And, as colleagues have said, this is essentially taking food out of the mouths of children. That's what it's going to mean, because for parents, they're either going to be forced now to go back to food banks or to leave their children go hungry. That's a consequence of taking, £1,000 off some families every year and £20 off them every week. So I don't apologise for the language in there. It came from somebody who is looking at the latter part of this year and seeing a really uncertain future because their £20 is going to be taken off them. It is the wrong thing to do. It is absolutely deplorable. So, I'm going to hold to the word in. I still hope Councillor Hawley and his group will support it. And I do hope Councillor Jones, given that he's committing to write to the Minister on this, will actually support the actions that are in this motion, because actually the actions are ones that if he agrees with the sentiment, he should support the motion, even if he perhaps has a little bit of caution with the wording. I would urge Conservative councillors locally to stand up for their communities and to make the case. If they don't, obviously their communities will need to make that judgment when they come to the ballot box. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Leader.
Chair, can I just call for a named vote as well, please?
Okay, thank you. That respond to the name vote, please. Yes. Yes.
You got that.
Yes, that's 10. Thank you.
Okay, councillors. So in relation to item 12, notice of motion universal credit, I will read out your name, and if you could just answer simply with for, against, or abstain. Cyril Anderson. For. Peter Black.
For.
Jane Winshaw.
For.
Mark Child.
For.
Dan Peters.
For.
Please.
I'm sorry, Hugh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, if you
can't hear anything.
Get the mics, and I'm going to mute everybody for a moment, and I'll call you in. Right, Councillor Nick Davis.
For.
Mike Day is absent. Phil Downing.
For.
Ryland Doyle.
For.
Mike Dirk.
For.
Kerry Evans.
For.
Mandy Evans.
For.
Will Evans.
For.
Wendy Fitzgerald.
For.
Robert Francis Davis. Robert, thank you. Louise Gibbard.
4.
Fiona Gordon.
4.
Kevin Griffiths.
4.
Joe Hale.
4.
David Helliwell.
Abstain.
Terry Hennigan. All right. Terry Hennigan.
4.
Chris Hawley.
4.
Beverly Hopkins.
4.
David Hopkins.
4.
Oliver James.
4.
Linda James. Linda James.
4.
Yvonne Jardine. Yeah. Jeff Jones.
4.
Lyndon Jones.
Abstain, but will be writing to the Minister, as I said.
Mary Jones.
4.
Matthew Jones. Peter Jones.
4.
Susan Jones.
4.
Elliot King.
4.
Erica Kirshner.
4.
Miles Langston.
Abstain.
Hannah Lawson.
4.
Andrea Lewis.
4.
Oh, sorry. Mike Lewis.
4.
Richard Lewis. Wendy Lewis.
4.
Clive Lloyd.
4.
Paul Lloyd.
4.
Irene Mann. Penny Matthews.
4.
Peter May. Hazel Morris. David Phillips. Cheryl Philpott.
4.
Sam Pritchard.
4.
Alison Pugh.
4.
Jen Rayner.
4.
Christine Richards.
4.
Kelly Roberts.
4.
Bridget Rowlands.
Abstain.
Mary Sherwood.
4.
Colette Smith. Robert Smith.
4.
Andrew Stevens.
4.
Rob Stewart.
4.
Gareth Sullivan. Gloria Tanner.
4.
Des Thomas.
4.
Graham Thomas.
4.
Mark Thomas. Will Thomas.
Abstain due to the language.
Linda Taylor Lloyd. Linda Taylor Lloyd. She's left the meeting. Gordon Walker.
4.
Leslie Walton.
4.
Mike White.
4.
Okay, that concludes the vote. That's 53 votes for, no votes against, and 5 abstentions.
Okay. Okay, that concludes our agenda. Thank you all for your attendance. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.